So those of
Really?
you that are joining us, welcome. We are so excited to be here with you. And we are confirming. Oh, Wendy's here too. Wendy, it's so good to see you.
Oh, is
And
that you?
we have someone from Virginia and Roland. This is so fantastic. Okay, guys, we are so excited. I'm Wendy Smedley from FamilySearch. This is our third live stream here on Facebook, and three, right? And this is something that we've been doing since the quarantine. And our whole intention is to spend time with you and talk about things that might be helpful as you're doing some family history or genealogy at home. And so please, as you're watching us, feel free to start adding comments, and we have helpers. So what we're going to do today is we are joined by Tim, and he is a research assistant from the Family History Library, and he's going to talk a little bit about his expertise. And then we have our big question today is how to get past a dead end in genealogy research. So if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in just two people having fun in a conversation, then you are in the right place here at FamilySearch and the Family History Library. Tim, you've
Yes.
got to tell us about this room. Before we get started, what is going on behind you?
Well, this is my Philadelphia Phillies room. This used to be my son's old bedroom, and he moved out. He had a bunch of stuff in here before that, but then when he moved out, I converted it and then into a Philadelphia Phillies baseball room. So you can see autographed baseballs that you have on the back here, and some autographed baseballs down here also as well. And then we have some bobbleheads. They're all around the room. But
That's awesome.
we lost some of the bobbleheads during the earthquake, though.
Really?
Yeah. We had to throw out about 7 or 8 of them because they hit the floor, and they're not anchored down in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
So,
I know we're going to get to the research, but why is this your team? Why do you love them?
well, back in the old days, I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so back in the old days, I grew up in Harrisburg, and now we're talking 60s here, and so every Sunday we didn't have cable as back in the day. We only got like 3 or 4 channels, and the team that we got every Sunday was a Phillies game every Sunday. If you were lucky during the week, you might get a Phillies game out from one of I think it's either Lancaster, I think it's the Lancaster channel, but it was very snowy, and so that was the team you basically got to look at in black and white. So the Pirates weren't on TV. At that time it was the Washington Senators. They weren't on TV. The Baltimore Orioles were not on TV. So the only team you ever got was the Phillies, and so I followed them. But my other favorite team back in the day then was also the Atlanta Braves,
Okay.
who had just moved to Atlanta in 1966. But we didn't get any of those games because, like I said, there was no cable. So I grew up following the Phillies on TV, and then later on the radio. Listen to a lot of games on the radio. I know.
That's awesome. Tell us who your favorite team is, if you're into baseball or if you remember watching TV, black and white.
We'll do it on a radio.
Or radio. And you've been involved as a researcher at the Family History Library for like 30 years in some form. Is that right?
Yeah. I started doing research in 1982.
Wow.
My wife and I lived in Arizona at the time. And then in 89, we moved back up to Salt Lake City. And then about late 89 or early 90, I started volunteering at the Family History Library and volunteered for a while, and then came on as a part-time employee, which I did that for 6 or 7 years. and then eventually got on full time then in '97 as a full time employee.
Wow. Well, obviously, we're lucky that you're a part of the FamilySearch family. And one more question for you before we go into today's topic, which is what are the tips for getting past a dead end when you're doing research? But here's the question, because we talked earlier and you told me that one of your essential stores during the quarantine is you are an avid baseball card collector and you're still visiting the baseball card store?
Yes.
What does that look like?
We have a shop. Can I put a plug in for the shop?
Yes, sure. No?
Okay.
Yes, you can.
So my son's involved in this too, this baseball card collecting. In fact, I started back when I was about 10 years old, back in 1966. There, I just gave away my age.
We're all friends.
And so, and then hadn't collected for a long time, and then picked it back up again when my son was little. He's the oldest, and picked it back up again when he was little, and then it's just kind of blossom bloomed, whatever you want to call it, from that time. And so currently the shop that we go most to is called Overtime Cards it's in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And we shop for cards there or buy our cards there, but we also collect online, and a couple years back we went to the National Card Convention, which was in Cleveland. And we spend 4 or 5 days there purchasing cards.
Wow.
And spending way too much money.
Yes. Okay, so we've got some for all of our viewers. We're loving to see where you're from and the teams that you like. And we've got some Phillies and Red Sox fans and the Yankees and Dodgers. I grew up in California, and my brother always watched the Dodgers and Steve Garvey. That was kind of, and I think Tommy Lasorda. Yeah.
Lasorda, the manager. Yeah. We have his autograph.
Okay, that's impressive. And awesome. we have some Arizona Diamondbacks. And anyway, it's fantastic to have you here, Tim, and to all of our guests today. Tim's expertise is U.S. research. So this is a question that we got when we asked some of our fans and followers and viewers what questions they had that they'd like answered. And so on Facebook, we're here every Wednesday at 4 o'clock Mountain Time. And here we're able to kind of screen share and have you kind of walk through as you talk to us. So I think we start off with just your basic tips for getting past a research dead end, and you are welcome to screen share. And if you have questions for us in the chat, and we're also on the library page as well, let us know, and we have some helpers who can jump in and answer questions, and we'll take some questions about U.S. research at the more towards the end of the stream. So, Tim, I say, why don't you go ahead and share your screen, and let's get started.
Well, I think the first thing to do is if you're stuck on a brick wall, a line that you can't move back any further, then pick a different line. No.
Pick a different line. Give up? No. Oh, but wait, before you do this, how many baseball cards do you have? And do they have their own room?
No, they're in here with me.
Okay.
They're all listening. I have no idea how many baseball cards we have. There's too many to count.
Okay, this is so cool. And
I have them on shelves here. There's some on the floor down here too. They're all in boxes. They're all organized by years, and then in numeric order by whatever product it is at that particular time. And then there's also cards downstairs as well.
Oh, this is so cool. So this is like you're a researcher and you work at a library and you have your own library almost at your house.
Not only do I collect dead people, I also collect baseball.
Yes, you do. Okay, let's get started.
That's one question that comes up quite a bit. People will go into their family tree and they'll find an end-of-line individual. Mm-hmm. And then they'll say, I want to research from this person on back. Well, that end-of-line individual may be in the 1600s, maybe 17 or 1600s. And generally what we tell, a lot of times what we'll tell people is, how much have you actually researched on that end-of-line individual? you may have to, or how much have you researched on all of those lines up to that end of line individual? And by researching, I mean not just researching information on that direct line individual, but when you do research, you should be researching the entire family.
Okay. So descendants?
So, excuse me?
Descendants?
Descendants too, if you want to do that. Yeah, descendants also as well. And that's one thing that I did when I came to an end of line individual in my family is that I started doing descendancy research at that point then. But you want to look at the entire family. You want to collect information on not just those direct line individuals, but also the siblings of that direct line individual as well. And by records, I don't mean just your birth, death, and marriage records, but you also want to be collecting, are there any land records for that entire family?
Land records.
Land records. And if you're looking at land records, you want to pull all the land records for a particular individual or a particular family, because you don't know what type of connections or information is going to be in those records. So you want to pull the land records. You want to pull probate records. You want to pull church records, because here in the United States, there's no real central repository for vital records, births, marriages, deaths. It changes as you move throughout the United States as far as what time period they're keeping vital records. So you may get to a point where you don't have any vital records to look at. You just may have just land, church, probate. But also, too, you want to see, and this is the problem when you get old, you have these senior moments like this. It's just left my head. My idea just left my head. But so you want to look at everybody, siblings, everybody, gather information on them, obituaries, court documents that you may be able to get on everything, any type of record that you can think of to be able to look at.
Will you let's show them some examples kind of what you are talking about. And we've got Melanie, who I think Melanie McComb is saying, yes, so important to research an entire family. And we've got a lot of excited people to learn. So what you're saying is look at the entire family and not just the vital records, but you're going to look for land and church and all of these different types of records that can fill in this sort of gaps for you.
Yes, and you're gonna look at cousins too.
Okay,
not just siblings, but you want to look at additional family members, or what other family members may be out there at that time. Also, too, if you're just doing a census search, now a lot of people will use census. Well, everybody should be using the census.
I use the census.
Not just some people, everybody should be using it.
Yes.
So you want to, when you look at those census records, and for example, a lot of people will stop at the 1850, because the 1850 census is the first census that lists everybody in the household. Prior to that, the 40, the 30, the 20, the 10, they're just giving you the name of the head of household and an individual's represented by tick marks. But when you're looking at those census records, then particularly if you have an uncommon surname, it's not going to work so much with Smith or Jones. But what other families are living in that area on the census record that have that same surname? They may be related in some way, shape, or form, and so you may have to research that family in order to move your line back. Okay. So if I'm looking at, let's see, where are we at here?
And we've got some questions about areas outside of the U.S. I think we're focusing right now on inside the U.S., but then it would be great if we could, if that's something that you can speak to, we can talk about behind the Iron Curtain or Cuba, and we can have our moderators help answer those questions as well. But we're talking kind of right now focusing on U.S.
So, I do know for some of those, for some countries, they do have like a national church. And some of those records are going to be up online. I haven't done a whole heck of a lot of research behind what they call the Iron Curtain countries at the time. Let me see if I can blow this up here.
There's also, for someone who was asking about records in Cuba, there is some index record books that are available in the library, which I'm not sure currently how you would access, but there is a Facebook community called the Cuban Genealogy Community, and we'll make sure and put a link to that in the comments. So as you guys are joining us and asking questions, feel free to, like, if you have the answers, help each other out. Someone does have a roadblock on their fourth great grandfather in Germany. So we're going to focus right now on US, but we can try to answer those as they come. Okay, take it away. What are we looking at?
So when I started, this is what I have in Family Tree. And when I got to a point, this Samuel Bingaman that you see here, he was at one point my end of line individual. I didn't know anything about him. And since then I have, from putting information together, found out that who his father was and who his mother was. But this was my end-of-line individual, this Samuel. And so the one thing that I decided to do was, and this was very early when I started doing research, but the one thing I decided to do was track down all of the living descendants of Samuel Bingaman. And my idea of doing that was in order to find living individuals who may have additional information that I don't have or don't have access to.
Okay, so let me restate that. So you're looking for living individuals who may have information about a particular ancestor that you don't have access to. So that's a great tip.
Yeah. So the way I did that, let me see if I can pull this up real quick.
And this is great. We're loving reading where you guys are from, and thanks for joining us.
So one of the things I had started with at that time, let me see if this is going to function for me here.
So let us know if you can see this is big enough as we get this set up.
So what I started with then in trying to find out more information about Samuel Bingaman was, of course, starting with the 1850 census, because I wanted to find out living individuals. Now, the other thing I did too, when I talk about researching the entire family, when I first started doing this, I wasn't doing that. I didn't know what I was doing. and so I was going through church records, because at the time that these people lived, the vital records weren't being kept. And so if you are doing any type of research, it becomes very important that you know what records are available in the time period that you're researching. Mm-hmm. And you can do that by going into the family history catalog and just looking at some of the records that are available there. But I strongly suggest, and I'm kind of amazed at how many people don't do this, but I strongly suggest that depending on where your ancestor lived here in the United States or in Canada, you contact a local historic or genealogical society in that area.
And how does someone find that information out?
They can go into the wiki, the FamilySearch wiki.
Okay.
And in the wiki, they can go into that particular state or particular county. And then usually there is a column there or a link there for historic or genealogical societies in the area. The other thing to do then is you can also Google, just use Google, the Historical Society of the Cobb County, whatever, Illinois, Georgia, whatever it may be. And then you'll get hopefully the correct information. But the reason I suggest that is because not all records are online. Mm-hmm. Okay. Not all records are going to be at the Family History Library. And Ancestry's not going to have, they use Ancestry quite a bit. Ancestry's not going to have everything either. And so at some point, if you are stuck, at some point, you are going to have to go to those historic or genealogical societies or contact them, or actually go there yourself and see what records they have, because they are going to have records that are going to pertain specifically to their area, that are not online, that are not at the libraries yet, but are just going to be stored there at that particular society.
Okay, that's a great tidbit. And if you have questions about how to do that, let us know. But using the wiki to find the local genealogical societies to get more information on the unique type of records based on the locale. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and I suggest too that individuals join those local societies, because I know that some of them are hurting for money. There's many states out there that have pulled funding for these societies, and they're relying basically just on membership dues. And so, yeah, please join the societies in those areas. Yeah. So when I started doing, so what I was going to say was, with Samuel Bingaman, when I first started out with this, I was going through church records, because there were no vital records at that time period in Pennsylvania where I was researching. And so I had to go through church records. But as I was going through the church records, I would find a Bingaman name, and I'd look at it and I'd say, okay, well, I don't recognize that name, so we're just going to ignore that. And not even, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing at the time, not even writing it down. I was just concerned with direct line individuals. And if it wasn't a direct line individual, I ignored it.
Okay. But you would say now you would go back and you would write the name down?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what I had to do then. Because at some point it dawned on me, I found an awful lot of those Bingamans in these church records. Who are they? And do they have any living descendants? And so I went back through those church records and wrote every Bingaman down, not just a christening of a child, but if they were witnesses in a baptism.
Okay.
If there was a Bingaman that was a witness to a baptism, there's probably some relationship going on there between the parents and the sponsors and their witnesses. And so I copied down all of those Bingamans, and then started then putting them into family groups, because you can match them up with names of parents and everything like that. And so then it's just a matter then of bringing those families forward in time. Now, with ancestral research, you're moving back in time. With what we call descendancy research, you're trying to bring those lines forward. And your objective here is to find living individuals who then you can contact and see if they have any additional information.
Okay.
This is one tool, one trick that individuals can use, as far as is the descendancy research.
Okay, we love that. That's awesome. Thank you.
And of course, you'll be contacting relatives then who, number one, you never even knew you had before, and they don't know who you are either. and some of them still don't want to know who you are.
Yes. But now's a good time, because we've all got some time on our hands.
That's right. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So on this, then you're looking at. For example, you're looking at obituaries. You're using the same set of records that you would in ancestral research, but you're just pulling different information off of these records. So for example, here was the obituary for William Bingaman, and here's his lovely sister Hannah, and she married a Daniel Pott. And so now I'm not going to be looking at Bingamans anymore. Now I'm going to be looking at the Pott or the Potts families, and bringing those lines forward. And so you're using the census records up to 1940, which is the last one that's currently available. You're going to be looking at more obituaries because you're interested in who the living individuals are on those records. And then eventually then getting around to using Facebook. What else is out there? There's people searching sites out there where you can get information to track down living individuals, and then contacting them through Facebook or giving them phone calls or some kind of messaging. If you notice on your family tree, for example, let's go back to that. How do I get out of this? Look at that. I did it without losing anybody.
You're great. You're doing great. This is all such good information.
Let's go back to the family tree here, for example. If we click on, let me see if we have anybody here. Let's see if we can pull John up here, for example. And if we go down here this is John's detail page. And if we come down here we have, okay, here's latest changes that were done. Whoops. And if you notice, I'm going to move this up. This is in my way right now. If you notice down here, you have these parent-child relationships, was deleted. I must not have liked that.
And obviously, you're an expert and you're a researcher, but we always want to remind people to be cautious when you're making changes, as I know all of our viewers are aware of. So thank you.
Yeah. But what you get here is then who that change was done by. Well, it may not be anybody's name that you recognize at the time. So if you just click on that particular individual's name, you get the individual's email address and you can send them an email and hopefully they will contact you.
Yes, this is a great new feature in the tree, the way that you can message people who are working on it with you. Have you had a lot of luck reaching out to living descendants as you
Oh, have I? Yes. I will usually Facebook them. I will usually call them on the telephone. Can I go into Facebook real quick?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
right,
let's show. And for those that are joining, we're going over some of Tim's best tips for researching past a dead end. Yes, pull up your Facebook. That's a brave move.
We're gonna hopefully none of my friends have.
Well, this is why we do this live streaming. This is real life, and we're having some requests when we go back to the screen to kind of make the screen a little bit bigger. So I think this view is working. And some people are having issues with the video quality. So let us know if that's for more than one person, but we're glad you can see the screen. Okay, so when you are trying to contact living descendants, using Facebook is one of your go-to.
Using Facebook is one of them. And then what I did on Facebook as well was I set up a descendancy page so that where the descendants or myself can post stuff, information. So on this particular page, I'm the editor, or whatever you want to call it, the holder of this. But every once in a while, someone will post something like, here we have somebody who's part of my Facebook group here for the descendants of Samuel and Sarah. Here's an obituary that somebody had posted of Ellen Rice. We also have some. Come on, let's get past all the verbiage here.
Yeah, this is a great method for staying in touch with descendants.
Yes.
Look at that fun photo. I like that.
Yeah, so we're putting up photos in here. People are able to attach their photos in here, and then I can pull them off and use them if I need to. Some of these are yearbook pictures, but we got all kinds of photos in here, and then I can pass along. This for example was a button that was found at the house of Samuel and Sarah, or at the house of one of their children, I should say. Somebody went out there and did some metal detecting, and found this button that was out there on the property at one time. Probably, it looks like it could be from the 1850s through the 1870s. And so he had a picture of it and posted that up there for me. I found this, type of thing on the property. We're putting documents up there.
That's great.
So it's a place where people can go to, and depending on how you set it up, then you have access. You can determine who comes in and posts and who doesn't come in and post. But the one reason I set this up was because many of the descendants that are back east, and so I don't have direct contact. I don't have direct contact with them. But when I do contact people, living individuals, I can send them to this Facebook page and say, this is what we're doing, and this thing just goes on and on and on and on. So it looks a little bit more legitimate. Not that I'm out there just fishing for information.
Gotcha.
So I can steal their credit card number or something.
Yes. This legitimizes your request, and it also facilitates a connection with the living family member. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Now the problem with this is I have contacted a bunch of individuals, a bunch of descendants of Samuel and Sarah, but The vast majority of them are not doing any type of family history research. So what you find out is you know more than they do.
So how do descendants find this page? Is it just through personal invitation?
I either send it to them when they contact me. Also, too, I have other people that come in, and because they're cousins or nephews or whatever they may be of the person I contacted, and they're interested in it, and so then they direct them to it as well.
Okay.
That's basically it.
Okay.
And I guess if you did a search on Bingaman's on Facebook, this would probably come up.
Okay. Okay, that's a great tip on connecting with descendants and staying, like learning from each other. I love that. And some people are mentioning in the comments that the bandwidth is an issue. So we're getting a mixed message on that, but I think we're okay. So we're going to keep going. Okay, Tim, take us to the next step or the next tip.
Well, the other thing too here, let's just stay on Facebook here for a minute, is there's lots of groups out there on Facebook as well for helping. And so for example, there's Pennsylvania genealogy sites, there's Berks County genealogy sites, there's different sites as far as on Facebook or different pages on Facebook, to help with end-of-line individuals. The other thing too would be is the community page that's on FamilySearch.
Yes, this is a great resource, and I don't think many people know about it. And we've put a link to that, I believe, in our comments. But do you want to show people how to access that?
Yep. So, doggone it, I forgot how to do that.
Go through help.
I think can you get that? Okay, it is under help. Okay.
Yeah, Research Wiki
That's
is
terrible.
under
I go
search.
to it all the time. Okay, so here under help, once you've logged in here, and then if you run down here, just scroll down to where you get to community. And it's going to do something.
And I think this is a good...
Ta-da! There we go.
There it is.
So this is Welcome to FamilySearch Community. And if we scroll down a little bit, here on the left-hand side of your screen, you have Browse or Ask, Browse, Ask, Answer. So if we go in, click on that where it says Support Questions, this will come up. Come on. There we go. This is just general questions. You can post general questions in here if you wish to about your research. There's also groups. Over here on my left-hand side, as you see, there's Pennsylvania, Ohio. These are all the various groups that I think I belong to.
And you helping you as a research assistant, you're helping with some of these research group questions, right?
Yes. Yes, we do.
This is a great tip for everybody. If you have specific questions, go to these research groups.
Yeah, yes. And so you can post it. You can put it in the general research questions if you want to. Or you can, let's see here, where are we at here? What would you like to know? So you can, just click here. Ta-da, what would you like to know? And just start typing your question. And then people do go in and look at this. Like you mentioned, Wendy, I go in. I check the Pennsylvania one most of the time, or a lot of the time, I should say. That's the one I generally drift towards. And then if there's some, let's just look at Pennsylvania here.
Yeah, let's give them an example of what we're talking about. This is great.
So the first question up here in Pennsylvania is, hello, my grandparents were married in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1944. I have the marriage certificate number. How can I find the date of the marriage? Thanks very much for any help you can offer. And so if you notice here, there's one answer that's showing, but here if you click on more answers, it will pull up all of the answers that were given to this particular individual. Now, what they're going to have to do for this question is that the FamilySearch catalog does have marriage records for Philadelphia. That go up to 1951. However, for the marriage certificate, this individual eventually sent me the marriage certificate number, and I looked it up on the catalog, and currently that group of 1944 is not online. So I'm assuming that at some point it will be up. It just hasn't been digitized yet at this point and put up online. I
also, the links on the right-hand side, this is also something that I think is a great research or resource for research, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. These are, here, for example, these are dealing strictly with Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a link to the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. They're going to have some databases online. Here's one to the Pennsylvania State Archives. They're going to have some databases that are online. Not all of their records are going to be online, but they're going to have some. Pen Pilot is kind of a fun little map tool, which is aerial photographs that were taken of land in Pennsylvania, dating from aerial photographs from, I think, 1937 up to 1970, I think is when they did.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, this isn't going to be in every state, every state.
Yeah.
So just be aware of that.
Here's a question for you. Let's take, as we're kind of discussing researching dead ends, especially in the U.S., what do people do with really common names? Like, I think someone said like a John Smith or a Jim Brown. Like, what's your tips for that?
Well, if it's Jim Brown, if they're talking about the running back for the Cleveland Browns, he's still alive. They can ask him. Yeah, common names. Common names are tougher to do, particularly when they start moving from one state to another.
Mm-hmm.
That always becomes very difficult. But again, it's that idea of making sure that you research the entire family. You can do DNA testing if you want to. That is one way to break through brick walls, is DNA testing. Mm-hmm. And there is a site on the community page about DNA and DNA results, so mm-hmm. you can use that group there for that. But again, it's this idea of researching the entire family. So if you have a name like Jim Brown or James Brown, I would be looking at all the census records for that family, going back as far as I could. Mm-hmm. I would try to discover, when you get past the vital records then, or before vital records came into existence, you're going to be looking at, again, your land records, your probate records, your church records, court records maybe, even newspapers. There's more newspapers that are starting to come up online. And mm-hmm. so you may be able to find newspaper articles about that particular family that may give information on them. But by researching the whole family, yes, you do have that common name, but by researching the whole family, you may be able then to keep the family links or the right family links together by researching every individual in that family, making sure that the names stay consistent the whole way through.
Okay, that's great.
And realize too that surname spellings change.
I noticed yours were different than the one that how you spell your name right now.
Yes, mm-hmm. yes. Mm-hmm. And even with the Pot and the Pot and Potts family, they went by Pot, P-O-T-T, but there's a lot of current descendants that have put an S on the end of it. And so when you're and even the spelling of like a surname like Taylor can change over time as well. Mm-hmm. And so don't get hung up on this. Well, my family, we now spell it this way, and this is the only way they ever spelled it. We had one guy in the library that came in one time that said he is now finally spelling the surname correctly.
Wow.
Well, I bet his ancestors would like to.
Okay, what is, I think one of the commonly asked questions that we talked about discussing was naturalization and or immigration. People that come to the library, talk to us a little bit about those types of records and what are some research tips for looking for, discovering, and understanding those.
Well, naturalizations, basically naturalization is when an individual is moving from one country to another and wants to become a citizen of that country that they're moving into. So the records, as far as what's going to be available, what information is going to be available on them, is going to vary from time period to time period. Any naturalization that takes place in 1906 and later is going to have wonderful information.
1906 and later.
1906 and later.
Okay.
Yeah. Before 1906, you're at the mercy of the clerk as far as what the clerk wants to put on that particular naturalization. And the further back you go, the less information they're going to have on it. And so some naturalizations may just be, John Smith naturalized on this date, boom, that's it. It's in the court record. And that may be all the information they have. After 1906, then, you get not only the name of the individual naturalized, but the name of the spouse, maybe the names of children when they were born,
Wow.
where the individual was from in the old country from across the water. You should be getting what ship they came over on, if they can remember what date they arrived and what port they came into. So there's a lot of information on those pre-1906 naturalization, or sorry, post-1906 naturalization records. Pre-1906, like I said, it's up in the air. The best two places to go to look for naturalization papers are Ancestry and FamilySearch. Me personally, I know FamilySearch is going to hate me, but personally, if I'm looking for a naturalization record, I will generally go to Ancestry to look for that. Ships passenger lists, again, the same thing. I generally use Ancestry for ships passenger lists.
Okay, this is great information. We want people to know where to go to have success. So definitely talk about our partners. This is fantastic.
Now the thing with passenger lists is the U.S. did not start keeping passenger lists until 1820.
Okay, so before that, how do you find out?
Before that, the early passenger lists more than likely have already been published. They're put in book form in some way, shape, or form. They could be at the library, at the Family History Library. They could be at a state archives somewhere. They could be at a local historic or genealogical society. But it's always a good idea to look at the FamilySearch catalog to see what is available. And many of the vast majority of them have been digitized at this point, so many of them are online as far as passenger arrivals are concerned. We
were getting someone asking, will you show just how to access the wiki I have your screen up, because this is a really rich research resource on FamilySearch as well.
Yeah, so let's just go to FamilySearch. When you go into FamilySearch, and you don't have to be logged into FamilySearch, just go to FamilySearch.org, and then under the search option here, here we go. If you scroll down under the search option, if you scroll down, it's the very last one. It says Research Wiki, and so if you click on the Research Wiki, eventually it will pop up. There you go. Okay, so here's the wiki. And so here you can search by place or topic, and here's your place to put in. So if you want to do, for example, we'll do naturalization.
And note the number of wiki articles. It's 92,627.
Right.
This is a significant resource.
So here's naturalization's terms and acronyms. Let's look down here just at the naturalization overview. So if I click on that, it takes me to a wiki page that's going to tell me all about, well, not all about,
but great info, great place to start.
Right. Yeah, it'll give you some information there. Gosh, I just want. But then if you want to search up here in the top right-hand corner, you can type in NAT. Boy, it's a good thing I know how to spell something.
And I just want to say, as you're doing this, that we've got some really great viewers and guests who are answering people's questions as they're asking in the chat. So it's just a wonderful community, this genealogy and family history community. And we're just grateful to be spending an afternoon with Tim and with all of you. Okay, what have you found?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No. I just went into the category section of this, and here's Canada naturals. Okay, so let's see what this one has. Ta-da! Okay, all right, here we go. Naturalization overview, bounty lands. There's all kinds of topics under here for pages. United States migration history. You have that. Here's United States naturalization and citizenship. There we go.
And this is rich with resources and links and so much information.
So look at all these topics over here just for naturalization. So locate here you have Beginner's Corner, you have an overview, major websites, Now, the wiki itself does not have records on it. It takes you to or tells you where the records are. But you do get a very, very good background. Here's record content, as I was talking about, before 1906 and after 1906. Here's the naturalization process by colonial naturalizations pre-1790. Let's go down here. Here's locating records by time period. So there's just, if you're doing, that's for naturalization, if you're doing Native American research, did I spell Navajo right? I don't think I spelled, how do you spell Navajo? Come on.
Yeah, I think there's a U. Right there you go, A.
There you go. Okay. So here we have just, for Navajo research, for example, here's the Navajo Nation. Let's just click on Navajo. There's Navajo County, Arizona genealogy. Now that would be records for the county of Navajo in Arizona. Here you have the Navajo Nation, a guide to Navajo Indian family history and genealogy, and it talks about the various time periods there. So, if you're stuck on a topic, you don't know anything about a topic, I would definitely try the FamilySearch wiki.
Okay, so this is
types of questions that you have.
The communities and the wiki. These are two gems for anyone with questions about almost anything to do with their genealogy and research, right?
Yes.
How often do you use the wiki as you're researching? Like every day?
I'm really smart. I don't use it.
Because you've been doing this for so long. You have it all. And yes, you are very smart. I will give you that.
All up here.
It's all up here.
No. I'm probably using it maybe once a day.
Okay.
Particularly at work.
This is great. Yeah.
My own research itself deals with Pennsylvania, so I'm pretty well up on the Pennsylvania stuff, so I don't have to go there as much. But if there's patrons coming into the library, yeah, I've been there for 30 years, but I don't know everything, and new records come out all the time, and so you have to constantly be checking the catalog, the library catalog, the wiki, Ancestry. You have to constantly be checking these various sites to see if there's any new information that's out there. You just can't go by memory. I made that mistake one time in the library where I actually told a patron, no, we didn't have the records because I had that all stored up in my head. And fortunately, though, the person that they were with came back with some microfilm. This was before the records were online. And came back with microfilm and says, "Oh, I think I found them." And I said, "Well, where'd you find those?" He said, "Well, I checked the catalog." So I never made that mistake again. So I never tell the patron now, "Oh, we don't have them," unless I have checked the library catalog.
Okay, so, this is good. Everyone, there's always new stuff, like you said. So check everywhere to find out. I loved your tip on Facebook too, and creating groups of descendants, and then there's ways to share. We are getting ready to wrap up. Is there any? What would you like a message to be to people watching in your area of sort of expertise, and something that you think people should invest time in doing?
That's a good question.
And if you are going to share without your screen, you could probably stop the screen share, and then your face will be bigger. It'll be great. Unless you're going to show something.
It's a good thing I shaved.
Okay. And we just love the background of your office.
Yeah, there you go. You get the background of the office too. Okay, so I think the one thing that I would share is, we're people like to move back in time. They like to go. I want to go back as far as I possibly can, or I want to go back all the way back to wherever you can get to. And people would, and I hear this a lot of times, surely there has to be a record of this guy that lived in 1750 in Connecticut. Surely there has to be. Well, actually, no, there doesn't have to be. But but surely, why didn't somebody write something down about that guy from 1750? So my thing is, are people going to be asking that about you 100, 200 years from now? So are we writing down our own histories? Are we writing down? We spend a lot of time trying to find this guy back in 1750 or maybe even 1850. Are we writing down stories about our parents, our grandparents, even great-grandparents, if we know who the great-grandparents are we writing down their stories? So 100 and 150 years from now, somebody doesn't come along and say, gee, I know Tim, he spent a lot of time doing family history over 30 years, but he never wrote anything down about himself or mom and dad or parents or grandparents. Surely he knew his grandparents. Well, actually, I knew one of them. They were all dead by the time I came along. But I have stories about her. I grew up with her. She died when I was in my 20s, so when I had quite a bit of contact with her. So I'm writing down those stories about her. And then when you gather those stories together, is putting them up into the FamilySearch family tree under the memories. You can put them in there, and they'll be stored there, and they'll be kept. I think we spend too much time worrying about how far back we're getting, and we're not capturing the stories and the information of people who we knew or know, and writing their stories
and our own history, right?
Yes, our own histories. Yes. There's a big thing in the LDS Church, about keeping journals, but how many of us actually do that? So that when somebody comes along and wants to know. My thing with family history is not really trying to move back as far as I possibly can. I am more interested in who that person was, what they did in their life, what were their surrounding, their circumstances, what was going on at the time period that they lived. That's what I'm interested. That's what I'm interested in, and trying to rebuild, if you can, what their life may have been like. Now, if you go back into the late or early 1800s, that's hard to do. But if you bring it forward, you probably know your parents or grandparents, and you can write stories and memories about.
Yes, and photos and
photos. Yes, photos. That's another thing with descendancy research. Is I originally started doing descendancy research to try to find something more information about Samuel Bingaman. But what I then started doing as I started doing more and more descendancy research is pictures. Where are these pictures of these individuals? And so I try to gather as many pictures as I possibly can, for my own collection, and be able to share them on that Facebook page or have other people share them on the Facebook page. Because if you don't have those photographs identified on the back of them, who the people are, those photographs are going to disappear. I have a friend whose mother is Japanese, and she has a bunch of fabulous Japanese pictures, but there's on the backs of them there's no identifications of who these people who were in Japan lived in Japan.
Wow.
And every once in a while I tell him, look, sit down with your mother. His mother's 91, 92. I hope he's listening to this right now.
Yes, do this.
I said, you need to sit down with your mother and get these photos identified. Nobody's going to know who these people are.
Oh, and that's tragic.
I know.
Okay, that is fantastic advice.
No baseball questions?
Well, I think there are people who want to know if you have baseball cards of your ancestors. Have you made collectible ancestor cards?
Oh, no. No, I have one of my wife.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I think that we are nearing an end, and thank you. I'm going to wrap up. And Tim, thank you so much. And now we know where to find you if we have questions. We go to the communities, to the Pennsylvania research group, and you are going to be there. And
when the library opens up, I'll usually be on the second or third floor.
Okay, and we still do not know when that is going to happen.
No,
but when it does, we will let you know. So Tim, thank you for such great advice and sharing, and all of our guests who answered questions, Melanie and Jan and other people in here were appreciative. This video will be archived and available, because who doesn't want to watch this again, right? We all want to see Tim's office.
Was that Jan from California?
Jan Murphy, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Jan.
Yes, Jan is fantastic. And we have people joining from all over. And before we end, I just want to remind you that we are doing this weekly here on Facebook. Next Wednesday at 4, we'll be joined by Ancestry, Jen. I think it's Jen Utley. So I could be wrong about that name, but I'm pretty sure that's right. And tomorrow on Instagram, we will be talking with Diane Loosely about the future of family history. So we'd love to have you join. And Tim, is there anything else you want to say before we say goodbye?
Baseball season has to start soon, or
This is tragic for you. Yes, I hope for all of our sakes that we get to normalize.
Genealogy is always there, and so since we're both basically all stuck at home, start writing those family histories about parents and grandparents.
Yes, I think that's such good advice. And if you have research questions, Tim showed you a couple places to go. And thank you so much, Tim. We really, really appreciate your time today. And we will see everyone next week.
Okay.